sincerely welcome everyone to our Sunday festival in Sri Radha Gopinath Temple. My special gratitude to His Holiness Bhakti Vishvambhar Madhava Maharaj. He's a very dedicated servant of Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas. Very, very enthusiastic, very deeply learned, and completely committed to the path of pure devotional service. Let us very enthusiastically welcome him to Sri Radha Gopinath. And to His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj, let us. And my dear godbrother Nikalananda Prabhu, who I first met in my life for the first time yesterday. Srila Prabhupada's family is so wonderful. In Prabhupada's family members, where there's just in our connection to Prabhupada, there's immediate love and gratitude and connectiveness like brothers and sisters. And it's such an exciting family that practically every day you could meet a new brother you never met before. Even when you're 58 years old. Let us welcome Nikalananda Prabhu to Sri. Very dedicated devotee from Germany, yes? Germany. This week, our city of Mumbai has been tragically shaken by these terrorist activities. Not only Bombay, but the whole of India and most of the world has been deeply affected. And being so close to where we are and who we know, it has had a very deep effect on many of our lives. Just today, one devotee and her family came. She was working at the Taj Mahal Hotel. And suddenly there was the sounds of guns firing. And the hotel management led them to try to hide, first under tables, then into another room and another room. And she personally witnessed one of the terrorists just randomly killing people. So cruel. She said he was practically laughing, as if he was just playing. It was just like play for him, just killing people. And she was trapped, hiding for over 8 hours before finally escaping. During those 8 hours, devotees were praying and chanting for her safety. One of our brahmacharis, from what I understand, his first cousin was there and she escaped, but her husband and his mother and father were killed. Another devotee, their son's biology teacher and her husband was killed. They knew him very well. These are just a few instances that have come to my attention within the last day. And some of the terrorists were killed, and one was captured just within 1 or 2 minutes walk from Radha Gopinath temple. How does a Vaishnava see such tragedies? Devotees see whatever appears within this world through the eyes of the scriptures and through the eyes of the great saints, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. The first response of a devotee is the heart. Bhakti is of the heart. Vaishnav means paradukadukhi. Out of compassion, to feel pain for the suffering of others. There are so many different perspectives in which a Vaishnava can analyze and discuss such a trauma that we have seen. Today in my bookshelf, I'd closed my eyes and just went like this and chose a book. Thinking, what words are Prabhupada's giving me? And without even opening my eyes, I just took the book and opened it up to a page. And the first words I read in a Prabhupada purport, then I went to the word, where he said, a Vaishnava in disciplic succession is always unhappy to see other people suffering due to the threefold miseries. Miseries caused by other people, adibhotaka. Miseries caused by one's own body and mind, adhyatmaka. And miseries caused by natural disturbances, adidaivaka. We have been reading about Prahlad Maharaj. He's being offered any benediction by Lord Narasimhadev. And he simply wants to remain in this world as an instrument of the Lord's mercy, as long as anyone is here suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. Vasudev Dutt, he asked for one benediction. Let me take everyone's karma and suffer perpetually hellish conditions, but purify everyone else. Let them all go back to your abode. They all pray to be instruments of the Lord's mercy. So, a Vaishnava is Narottam. The best quality of human existence is manifest through the life of a devotee. Devotees are not callous to suffering. Devotees are very affected by suffering of others. And how do we act as instruments? Arjuna was a Kshatriya. He acted as an instrument by fighting to protect the innocent and reestablish the Lord's will of compassion. But for most of us, like Vasudev, Datta, or Prahlad, we are not like them, but following in their footsteps through our prayers. The prayer of a Vaishnava is very powerful. Far more powerful than we understand ourselves. We may not even understand the power of our own prayers. But when devotees do not have material motivations in their prayer, when devotees are sincerely reaching out to the Lord for the help of others, Krishna hears that prayer and certainly bestows blessings. Certainly bestows blessings. So we should be sincere in our prayer for all those who have been afflicted by these atrocious activities. And we should try to make a difference individually and collectively to elevate people's consciousness. What is the root of the disease? Vaishnavism is about addressing that. The real enemies in this world are lust, envy, anger, pride, greed, and illusion. And when people by their own free will agree to be controlled and affected by these enemies, they become instruments of the power of hatred. And we see this. How is it that a person can be so hateful, so envious, that they take joy in murdering and seeing innocent people suffer? How is it possible? And even put a label on it to justify it as something that's holy. So demoniac. Simply instruments of envy. These enemies terrorize everyone from within. Hold us like hostages and exploit us. And factually, these enemies are so powerful. We have no way to defend ourselves. We have no way to rescue ourselves. We can only cry out with all sincerity for the Lord's mercy. Daivi heshu gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva me prapadyante mayam etatarantite. these enemies of material existence, are very powerful. But one who takes shelter of me, Krishna explains, he delivers us. Srila Prabhupada, when he was on Jaladuta, although he himself had just endured several heart attacks, seasickness, he had virtually no money, he didn't know a single person in the Western world. He was about to get off a boat. He didn't know if even anyone was going to be there for him. Like Prahlad, what was his prayer? He was not praying for himself. He was praying to be an instrument of Krishna. Krishna's compassion for the welfare of others. The economic collapse that's inflicting so much suffering in the world, the wars, the prejudice, the hatred, the terrorism, it's all born of selfishness. It's all born of lust, which creates anger and pride and greed, envy and illusion. So we want to pray for the welfare of others, and we want to help. Just a year or so ago, when those bomb blasts took place in the railways of India, in the suburbs, so many dead bodies, injured bodies were brought to Bhaktivedanta Hospital. The doctors, the nurses, the congregation, they were chanting the holy names, they were giving charanamrit, giving tulsi leaves, and also trying to help them physically to whatever extent was humanly possible. Many times Srila Prabhupada was very proud to show people a newspaper article. There was a fire in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, and everyone was running away. And devotees were doing Harinam, Sankirtan or something. They would, Ratha Yatra. They were doing Ratha Yatra, and they took the cloth off the cart, the chariot, and stretched it out so that people can jump out their windows and be saved. Now, neophyte devotees would say, why are devotees trying to save people's bodies? But Prabhupada was so proud. He was so proud of our devotees. Devotees were praised. People wanted to hear what is bhakti after seeing what is bhakti. Prabhupada said when everybody else was running or just doing nothing, devotees were actually, because they have compassion. All over the world, Prabhupada was telling this story in his lectures and his talks. Because it is devotees' nature to be compassionate. For the body, for the mind, and especially for the soul. So in these circumstances, our prayer should be, how can I be an instrument of compassion? How could we be instruments of compassion? Krishna's compassion. Srila Prabhupada emphasized this book distribution. And asked us to be instruments of this compassion. When we understand and identify what is really the enemy, it's not just the people. It's the demoniac, envious forces that are controlling these people. Lust and envy and anger and greed, pride and illusion. This transcendental knowledge is there to equip people to fight the war against these enemies within us through knowledge and devotion. Some people, they question the existence or the power of God when these things happen. Where was God for this person? Why did God allow this to happen? Or why did God do this? And there are many arguments, many questions, many doubts that emerge in people's minds whenever there's a serious disaster. What kind of God is this that allows innocent people to be slaughtered? Maybe God isn't good. Or perhaps he's good, but he's not all-powerful. He's not very potent. There's nothing he can do about these things. So who really needs him? Or perhaps there's just not a God at all. What's the use of even believing in a God if he allows such things to happen? Philosophy is very important to maintain a strong foundation in our devotion, especially at times when these storms come, either personally or all around us. If you build a house on a strong foundation, no storm can knock it down. But if we build a house on sand, the storms can demolish it, destroy it. Our faith and our devotion is very much in need of a strong, solid philosophical foundation to withstand the onslaughts of this world. We were discussing this morning, from the very beginning and throughout the Shastras, Krishna tells us that this material world is a place of misery. Abramabhavanaloka punar avartanojana mamopetya tu konteya punar janmana vidyate. From the highest planet to the lowest, they're all places of misery. Krishna doesn't say they're places of inconvenience. He doesn't say they're places of pain. He says they're places of misery. Misery is a very, very intense, deep, graphic experience. We choose to come to this material world. And Krishna is so kind. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham out of his love and compassion, he comes in so many ways, in so many forms, in so many times and places to attract our hearts back to his loving service. Savai pungshang paro dharma yatho bhakti radhokshache ahoitaki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Real religion is not a sectarian concept. The supreme occupation for all humanity is loving devotion to the Supreme Lord. And such devotion, such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Srila Prabhupada would explain, whatever religion teaches people to actually love God, that is good. It is not a sectarian concern. It's not just a matter of where you happen to be born and what you happen to be taught when you're a child as far as what religion you are. But when envy and ego, pride, and anger and greed, when these enemies become prominent within our heart, then we even interpret our religion to fulfill their dictations. That is the problem. So we do not hate any particular religion. We hate those who are dictated by these enemies within. And the world should unite. All those who sincerely want, on various levels, to apply God's will to their life. But God's will is compassion. Krishna says this is a world which is miserable. Miseries caused by other living beings has always been there. We shouldn't blame God or doubt God. We should understand that it's because people are not living according to the principles of Krishna that all of these things are happening. And Krishna gives us our free will in this world, and he gives others a free will. And the laws of karma and how people are inflicted by the cruelty of others. It's just part of this world. Just think about it. Is there anywhere in this world that's not on a regular basis full of suffering? Europe. Just look at the history. It's just a history of war after war after war, and whoever conquers just destroys and exploits and causes so much suffering. And then another war and another war, and plagues and disease and earthquakes and droughts. It's the history of Europe. Hitler, 6 million Jews, 2 million others. None of them were soldiers. They were all just innocent civilians that were tortured and murdered. and so many more that suffered. If 8 million were killed, how many others suffered in their families and their friends? That was just about 60 years ago. Not very long. And Stalin, some people, 20 million people, some historians, 10, 15, 20 million people, it's estimated. Civilians, ordinary people, were tortured and died. America. So many of you Indians think, let me just go to America and be happy. And Native American Indians were fighting each other first, and then the white man came and started slaughtering them. And there was all kinds of battles and fighting between the two. And then wanted independence from Britain. There was a major war. So many deaths, so many injuries. Then after that, there was a Spanish-American War. Then the Civil War. More people died in that war than all the others for Americans. Killing each other, fighting each other. There was slavery. The president was shot and killed. Then after that, it didn't get much better. It's World War I. They called it the war that ends all wars. And a few years later, there was World War II. Well, in between was the Depression, the Great Depression, which makes the economic situation today look quite prosperous, where practically the entire country was in poverty. People had nothing. It's absolutely miserable situation. Then World War II. Then there was the civil rights, rioting in the streets, burning of cities, the hippie movement of a whole culture that revolted against their parents. Vietnam War, Korean War. Australia, so many problems. Name the place there isn't fighting on a regular basis. Horrible death. The only place I could think of is Antarctica. The reason's there's no humans there. And India, the Mughals came in and so much treachery, so much exploitation. Then the British came in, and if they were all that good, why did the whole Indian country revolt against them? And then after liberating themselves from the British, there was massive communal battles and killings and bloodshed and the partition. And we're Vaishnavas. We say, well, it doesn't affect us, but what in Vrindavan, Aurangzeb was slaughtering Vaishnavas, breaking deities, destroying temples. So maybe it's better if I become a Christian. Christ was killed. And all of his apostles, except one, they were all tortured and killed. And the one that wasn't, I think he was boiled in oil and somehow he didn't die, so they banished him to an island. And the Jews, they were slaves for generations and exiled into a wilderness. Haridas Thakur was beaten 22 marketplaces. So whether you're religious or not religious, the material world is a place of suffering. Therefore, Prahlad, when he was asked for a benediction, he didn't ask for a better situation in this world, because there really isn't a better situation in this world. It's just superficially there may appear to be. He asked my Lord, I don't want any more material desires, because that's what keeps me in this world. Free me from this lust, from this selfishness. And let me always remember you. And let me be your devotee. But those who attain me rise above it all. Yes, we should feel a sense of urgency to help people to rise above this lust, envy, anger, pride, greed, anger, and illusion. Prabhupada's books are like commandos. Really. And those who are devotees who are speaking the knowledge of these books are like commandos, trying to free the soul who is like a hostage of the enemies, of these anarthas. This is compassion, real compassion. We all have to die, and quite soon. We were speaking this morning, Lord Narsingha Dev gave Prahlad Maharaj the benediction. He didn't ask for anything except, I don't want to have any more material desires, because that will keep me bound to the sufferings of material existence. I don't want anything except to always be remembering you. He tells Lord Narsingha Dev that you're offering me benedictions for my service. The reason I'm doing my service and the reason I'm taking shelter of you is to be free from material existence, not to get enjoyment in this material existence. I'm afraid of material existence. Yes, there's so much suffering. And sufferings like this should actually affect our hearts very deeply on many levels. One, we should be angry at injustice. We should be angry at the enemies like Hanuman. Hanuman was not thinking, oh, Ravana, I'm transcendental to this world, let him do his thing. No. But his anger was not due to frustrated desire. The anger of these terrorists, the angers of other people who are causing so much atrocity, their anger is based on envy and greed and lust and tremendous amount of false ego. I'm the best, therefore my religion is the best. My nation is the best. Simply illusion. Hanuman was fighting for Ram. And we should feel compassion for all those who suffer. And we should do what we can, internally and through our acts and words, to make a difference. A tangible, solid, substantial difference. However big or small. Whether we're Garudas or whether we're little sparrows. Krishna sees our sincerity and reciprocates. And we should also understand through these situations this sense of urgency. It was one of the qualities of Prabhupada that deeply struck me. I had heard so many saintly people speaking very deep philosophy, so many nice social and religious thoughts. But Srila Prabhupada had an intense sense of urgency for the world and for each individual person that he came in contact with. He was not just asking us to chant Hare Krishna. He was practically begging us, pleading with us. Because he saw our condition, and he saw the condition of the world. Take this Krishna consciousness and share it with others. But when he said it, it was so deep. It was so real. It was so urgent. He was feeling for the sufferings of all living beings. He was seeing how people were victimized to engage in such atrocious activities. And League of Nations, United Nations, all of these things, they're necessary, but they don't go to the core of the problem. Srila Prabhupada was begging us to allow him to help us to go to the core of that problem, to purify our hearts, and to be instruments of real compassion, not fanatical, sectarian, dogmatic compassion, but the universal compassion of the soul. To love God and love every living being and raise their consciousness. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, Param Dristvani, Param Vijayate, Shri Krishna Sankirtan. Shri Nitai Gaur Sundar, they came with a prime benediction to transform the hearts of people. And that is the congregational chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Because we don't take Krishna or Prabhupada's words seriously about the nature of this material world and the urgency of our situation, our tendency is to become complacent. But it's real. We need to take shelter of the holy name. We need to give people the shelter of the holy name. And we need to be united with these influences all around us. We should understand what Krishna is expecting of us, and we should be united in a spirit of love for Krishna and compassion for other living beings. so that people can find actual happiness, not the superficial happiness that's the cause of suffering, but the happiness of the soul, which is beyond birth and beyond death. Yes, Prahlad was giving the blessings to be the king for the lifespan of Lord of Manu, which means 1,300,000 years. Multiply that by 71. And that was how long Prahlad could live in his palace. A palace he didn't even want. And serve Krishna by ruling over his kingdom. And Prabhupada says, how long do we have to live? For Prahlad, that's a short life. Compared to eternity, 70 years, 60 years, 50 years, we don't know. At the most 100. It's nothing. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Human life is meant to realize God and be an instrument to help others. Whether we're grihe tako, vane tako, sadahari bole tako, whether we're grihastas or renunciates, doesn't matter. Take seriously the opportunity that's here. It's urgent. And make a difference. Make a difference in this world. Although we weep, we cry, and we pray for the sufferings of others in these situations, it should also help us to take really seriously our responsibilities as Vaishnavas. Not to just complacently do a little chanting, give a little charity, and be immersed in materialistic life. But to honestly and earnestly take shelter of the Lord and His holy names. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. So let us take a moment let us take a moment to pray for all those who are suffering, for all those who have suffered, and pray that we individually and collectively can really assist Srila Prabhupada as being puppets of his compassion and his love for Krishna and for all living beings. Thank you very much.